It's been 6 years. You guys remember when they dropped the trailer in June for the Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball?
And all new adventures.
Who the fuck is that? Now, I'm not gonna act like that Gumball switching voice actors is out of the norm for this show. I'm pretty sure they've done it like 7 times or something. And one of them played Minecraft, I guess. Now, I know my title said that it's been like 7 years, and I'm asking why it changed. I mean, we all know why it changed, obviously. It's a new show, of course it's gonna be different. But for this video, I'm gonna go over everything that led to this series being made, you know, why it took so long, who they replaced, and all that stuff. You guys remember back in 2020 when they were hinting at a Gumball movie? What the hell happened to that? Why does Rocky look like that in the new series and not his handsome picture on Trawler? Now, I remember back then I wasn't too in the know on what the updates were when the series was on hiatus. My main source was just watching this guy continually edge me on Gumball content over the years. Had my dumbass hyped up because this Valesca bum fucker. No way to him, by the way, I'm sure he's cool. But anyways, what am I talking about again? Oh yeah, it's 6 years. So back in 2019, the original series ended with the Inquisition in June, which had a very mixed reaction from fans. Ben Bocquluet, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Ben went over to Twitter to state that he didn't want the series to end like this, but the movie would land things in a pretty cool way. The idea for a Gumball movie was actually teased before on March 18th, 2018 when Ben tweeted, "I think I might have a good idea for a Gumball movie. Would you guys watch a Gumball movie?" The responses were very adamant, but it seemed to convince Ben to try and work on one. After the other tweet though, it seemed viable to conclude that the last episode for the series wouldn't be the end, and that the movie would wrap things up. So once the series finally ended, fans just waited.
Oh, 17 hours.
What am I waiting for again? Okay, now that I look back at it, it did feel kind of stupid to think that the movie was just around the corner or something, but like, could you blame us? Like, look at the tweets they were doing in like 2021. Like, come on, how could you not be hyped for this? We weren't completely starved with content though, because at the start of 2020, we got Darwin's yearbook and the Gumball Chronicles, which I did not know about this. Most fans watch this series with hope in the chest that maybe they'll show some hint or continuation of the show's ending, or just add on to the main plot being built. But no, it was filler. It was nothing. Also, I just realized when editing this is that you can't really find the episodes for Darwin's yearbook or the Gumball Chronicles, but don't worry, you're not missing out on much. I remember being there when I was young, like 2020 and 2021, watching it. The main premise is just Gumball and Darwin doing some small tasks. They'll mention someone or something, and then they'll play a bunch of clips about said person until whatever small issue is resolved. And that's basically it. That's most of the shows in general. After that, we kind of just have this huge 4-ish year break of just nothing but teases for the Gumball movie and new season. There's a lot to go over, but a Reddit user by the name of the Weirdly Odd Guy made a post on the Gumball subreddit 2 years ago detailing every single update, leak, and detail on the state of the Gumball movie and new season. I'm shouting him out for this because this really helps with the research I'm doing for this video, so I just like to give props to him. But now with that out of the way, we can finally figure out what the hell happened to the movie. The first update that was found was back in February 17th, 2021, with Warner Bros. Discovery mentioning all the kid shows that would be added to the streaming service. You know, we got the Ben 10 specials, Greg at the Creek, Infinity Train, fucking Gross Girls, but hey, look at that, it's a Gumball movie. They don't really give out much information except the fact that it exists, which I guess is pretty cool. Also, yeah, Cartoon Network was with HBO Max for a bit since there's like, you know, streaming and no one's watching TV anymore, which I guess is fine, but I'm not really sure how to feel about this.
I said well, bye-bye. Okay.
2 months later though, on April 12th, Warner Media showed the new Kids EMEA leadership team. EMEA, sounds so fucking stupid. EMEA though, standing for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Basically, they just showcase the new members working for kids cartoons that are being shown like for those regions. With a notable figure here being Sarah Fell, who now overlooks Hanna-Barbera Studios in Europe, because, you know, that makes sense, Europe is part of their regions. Again, not much to note from this, but luckily a few months later on September 21st, another article was released showcasing the Amazing World of Gumball's movie and series is being greenlit, and will be coming soon to HBO Max. They even give a preview here for the show's story. The movie begins when Gumball's biggest fan finds the show's missing episode and accidentally opens a portal connecting his world to Gumball's cartoon world. Upon meeting his heroes, our superfan decides to team up with Gumball, Darwin, Anais, Richard, and Nicole to save him from a nefarious force overtaking Elmore, while inadvertently unleashing a threat of their very own. You see why everyone was hyped 4 years ago for this shit? I mean, they already had the story down basically, all we were waiting for was just the movie. It would be produced by Ben Bocquluet with the script written by Shane Mack, who the article says wrote Coffee and Kareem. Coffee and Kareem is an MA-rated movie, by the way. I don't know why they're advertising this to like their little like kid-friendly site. His other masterpieces include Randall Mickleberry, I Love You, Twilight, and The Guy Who's Fucking Your Girlfriend. Back to the article though, it also shows the executive producers also working on the movie, including Sarah Phil that I mentioned before, but that's basically it. Furthermore, in the Reddit thread, it mentions that on January 1st, 2022, Carla Connor and editor Prakash Patel added that they were playing a role for the Gumball movie. I checked Carla Connor's profile and I couldn't really find much. Wait. There's a third one?
Angry Bird.
Seeing her past projects though, you can see that she was working on the movie for 9 months before departing. The other guy, Prakash, did also work on the movie for a bit longer, about a year before dipping, and then that was kind of it for them. In February, Bobby Pills begins working on storyboarding and designs for the movie. You can see this through a worker named Aurelie Charbonnier on LinkedIn, who's actually the IRL actor for Sussy and Gumball. They worked on and off for a bit, but it doesn't seem like they're still with him, which I'm sure would be confusing, but I believe that they're most likely doing a section of the movie or a character, since, you know, Gumball is notorious for using an abundance of animation styles. Wait, who the fuck is Bobby Pills exactly?
I'm your dad. I'm your son.
Okay.
Hey, Dad.
Bobby.
No, you don't have to.
Well, it's an animation studio in Paris full of depressive, beautiful, effed up people making cartoons for depressive, beautiful, effed up people. They have a Newgrounds account and some animations. The profile picture is interesting, so I might as well look at. Oh, okay. They make some stuff. Now that you know this, though, you're probably wondering why an adult animation studio was on Gumball, and I don't really know either, but there's a chance you might have actually seen their work before, because they were the same people who animated Creature Commandos, Captain Laserhawk, and the trailers for Invincible Season 2 and 3. They worked from February to September, and then again a few years later, but we'll get to that when, you know, before everything else. On July 1st, 2022, it was announced that Light VFX Studios will be working on the Amazing World of Gumball movie, along with Hanna-Barbera Studios and, you know, those guys. Light VFX, by the way, is an independent creative studio that specializes in, well, VFX. They have a website with a pretty crazy UI design, but I guess it makes sense for their brand. They worked on some pretty cool stuff like Sinners, League of Legends, Wild Drift, and Napoleon. Not gonna lie, if they're using these guys to make the movie, then it better look fucking amazing when it comes out. I'm just saying. However, in August 23rd, 2022, it was announced that due to Warner Media and Discovery merging, which put the company in debt, the Gumball movie, along with 5 other projects, were dropped and no longer funded by HBO Max. Now this was, to put it lightly, really bad. And although it didn't exactly send the movie a step back in being made, it was basically just stuck in limbo for a bit until someone came to pick it up again. Also, yeah, there was debt with Warner Media and Discovery, which was a pretty big deal that I feel like most people don't even know, but they first came together in the same year, but since then they haven't really been doing well economically. I don't really know much about it. There's a video out there that breaks it down pretty well if you're curious, but one thing I do know is that most of this debt actually came from AT&T, a telecommunications company which acquired Warner Media in 2018. The debt followed them, and I'm guessing that when they merged with Discovery, they thought they could make all the money back, but with people not watching TV, they continued to garner even more debt, which was totaled to a whopping $37 billion altogether for Warner Media. Although most of this debt was just from the Warner Media purchase from AT&T and not anything else. But that's not all, because Discovery also had a lot of debt too when they completed the acquisition of Scripps Networks Interactive in 2018. It's not entirely sure how much total debt there was from the two. Some articles stated that there was apparently $50 billion of debt they had to pay, although this may not be entirely true. I'm not going to sit around here just try to figure out what debt it is, because I feel like we can all agree that it's a lot, but to make things more simpler, here's a graph of Warner Bros. Discovery's total debt from 2008 to 2025. Technically though, this is Discovery's debt before 2022, since that was before the merge, but as you can see here, the debt was slowly accumulated with a small spike here, and once we get to 2022, it just went up. Like, I don't even know what you do in this situation. To go a bit ahead in time though, this year they plan to split Warner Bros. Discovery into 2 companies which are currently unnamed, but one would focus on streaming and studios while the second one would focus on global networks. But back in 2022 though, since Warner Bros. Discovery owned HBO Max, which owned most CN shows, it was not looking good for Gumball, and to me, this is probably where the movie hit its biggest delay and why it most likely got held back in favor for another Gumball season down the road. With the movie though, a whole batch of other animation projects went down the road as well, including The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, out of here, Bye Bye Bunny, a Looney Tunes musical, out of here. Did I Do That? The Holidays, a Steve Urkel story, out of here. Batman Cape Crusader from Batman the Animated Series. Look, you already get it. They're all gone. They're all just kicked out from the studio. Except you say. Alright, with that out of the way, we can finally move on to the next few months. And for this part, I'm just going to speed it up a bit on the timeline because most of these will just be very little updates to the movie since it no longer has a distributor. But you will see updates on other cool stuff that they were working on because in November 2022, Emma Fernando announced that she is proud to be series producing Gumball Season 7 for Hanna-Barbera Studios Europe, which is great because that means, you know, there'll be a new series for Gumball coming out soon. A few months later though, in March 9th, 2023, after the assistant editor Gary Bradbury left after working 9 months on the Gumball movie, Warner Bros. Discovery put out an article to find other assistant editors. The Wayback Machine was the only way you could actually find this article, which means they probably did get their assistant editor because I can't really do it. A month later though, in April 2023, O'Reilly's Experience was updated yet again, with Bobby Pills working on the Gumball series this time for basically a whole year. I don't know if this is a spelling mistake or not, but they kind of just like fucked up here, so. Sometime later in April though, a guy reached out to an animator working on the Gumball movie, which they responded with, "Unfortunately, I can't comment, but for the Gumball fans, you guys are in for a treat." I don't know if this is true or not, but it's the guy that made the tweet. He has like a YouTube channel that like makes Sonic stuff. He's pretty cool. I recommend him. 3 weeks later though, on June 15th, 2023, a teaser for Season 7 of Gumball was shown at the Annecy Festival in France. And obviously, you can tell with my accent that I'm not French and I don't live in France. Luckily though, there was an article describing the event which stated that a new Gumball season was in the middle of production, and apparently the team put together a mock teaser trailer for Gumball, with him and Darwin crawling out of their graves as the clip announced something annoying, something evil. Alright, whatever. I couldn't find this unfortunately, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it, but it sounds like something Gumball would do, so eh. 2 months later though, on August 15th, Studio Soy, I'm just gonna hope that's how you pronounce it, made a post saying that they needed Previs/layout artists for about 13 months. This isn't actually the first time they posted about needing artists for Gumball. They did it back in June 13th, which I couldn't find, and then again in September 14th, 2023, looking for 2D key animators and cleanup artists to work the same amount of months stated before. During that same time in September though, Adam Long, aka Mr. Small from Gumball, updated that he was working with the team, and is still ongoing as of today. 2 months later in November, it was shared that Perry Allen would be working as a background designer for Gumball Season 7, and Matt Lay, an animator that has worked on a bunch of stuff over the years, would announce that he would be working on Season 7 of Gumball too. Moving over to next year though, in January 29th, 2024, Emma Fernando, a director at Hanna-Barbera Studios Europe, announced that they were looking for background artists for the Amazing World of Gumball to work in April. It's closed now, most likely at Monday 12th of February, where they state in all caps that applications will not be considered. About 3 months and a few days later, on May 2nd, 2024, Elena Jerez Cordero shared that she's happy to be working as a cleanup artist for the 7th season of Gumball, as well as sharing some pretty cool fan art. Moving over to June though, which is when the next Annecy Festival happened, there was more information on the current state of Gumball, with some attendees posting pics of the characters on decorations, and look, there's a little joyful bird thing here, and the guy holding the sock, see that? That's pretty cool. I got a page on the website where they just vaguely state that there's more Gumball, at least we know it's official now. And we got the most people we know working for it: Ben Bocquluet, Matthew Lazel, wait, Matthew? Like Matt in your area. Matthew Lazel though was actually someone that worked on Gumball before, as Ben Bocquluet states, being a young animator on the original series, and that we've groomed him to take over from a young age. Jokes, Bocquluet. Emma Fernando is also here as a series producer, as well as Zav Clark being the composer, and Sarah Fell continuing her role on whatever I said before. You remember her, right? But anyways, I couldn't really find an article explaining the event like the last one. The best I could find was the Animation Magazine's article, which says basically the same thing, but there was a Twitter account named Midu that actually went to the festival and tweeted a whole bunch of stuff about Gumball and other shows. Skimming through it though, you can see that he talks about the first episode of Gumball that was probably shared in that big ass theater thing. There's those pictures I showed before. There's also a Q&A section here, which is where he asked about the movie, which Ben replied saying that it's not cancelled, he's working on it, but with everything that happened, the movie changed and could be made, but differently. And then at the end he goes into more detail, but it's the same thing really. That's about it for the Anais Festival though, and there wouldn't be another update until October 1st, where they shared that another new 2D key animator was working on Gumball Season 7 for Studio Soy, Mark Sans Arbiol. Another 3 months later though, in January of 2025, Lele Vives, a designer for the 7th season of Gumball since September until now, says that the process is currently wrapping up at the end of this month and is seeking to work for a new character design job from February. It's pretty funny too, because in the same month, Benjamin, or Benji Wall, says that he'd be available for work by May after he's finished with the Amazing World of Gumball, showing that things seem to be wrapping up for this new season. Moving over to February 26, a random Twitter account asked CN Korea when they'll premiere Season 7, which they responded that the content has been dubbed in Korean and is scheduled to be launched in October, although the specific schedule for uploading the video has not been decided yet. I normally skip over this since this could have been very easily just faked, but I mean, moving to today, it's releasing internationally on October 6th, so shit, maybe this really is Cartoon Network Korea. 2 months later though, in April, another post is made, this time coming from Christopher Siemens, saying that fucking hell. This time coming from Christoph S, saying that his current job as a 2D key animator for Gumball will come to a close on June 20th, which makes sense to me if the show is going to be out in October. But then, a month later, the official Cartoon Network YouTube channel would post on May 19th, 2025, as well as the Amazing World of Gumball channel, a sneak peek of their new show, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, which would be coming soon to a streaming service near you, more specifically, Hulu. The Reddit thread ends here, but I already know that 2 months later on July 15th, the official trailer finally comes out and showed that it would be available on Hulu for the US on July 28th. And then the rest of the world on October 6th, cause yeah, just fuck us I guess, whatever, sure. Okay, the reason for this delay though, for the international release, is because HBO Max still technically owns Cartoon Network and Gumball, and although I did say before that the movie was dropped, the series is still technically there with them. It's just that HBO Max really doesn't like children's cartoons on their platform, but they were cool with licensing the show to Hulu on Disney Plus since they already have a bunch of kid shows there, and you know, Gumball just fits right in. They didn't want to entirely lose a show though and the audience, so they only kept it to America, and internationally it's still going to be on Cartoon Network and, you know, HBO Max, because would it be like that big of a lie if it was because of Gumball and definitely not because of money, right? So that's about it for the timeline, which took way longer than I thought it would be, even though I skipped some parts too to save time. The Reddit link will be down below if you want to know the rest, but now that we've done that, we can make it to the actual show and analyze and see what makes this Gumball so different from the first one, since I feel like for most people, their main complaint was that the show, or the first few episodes, didn't really feel like Gumball for a bit, almost like a copycat show. This is most obviously due to the large gap between production of the new show. If you check Ben Bocquelet's tweets, you can see that he finished the last script on December 2nd, 2017 for the original series, and if you go back to the timeline, or well, I guess forward from here, you'd know that in November 2022, Emma Fernando announced that she would be serving as producer for Season 7. Now obviously these dates aren't the most reliable, but we can clearly see that there was an almost 5-year gap in writing or producing Gumball, so I can't really blame them for not completely matching the vibe the original show gave off, which I guess is why they made into a completely new series and not just Season 7. And yeah, if you remember, they were actually working on the movie during this time, but that is way different compared to the show. I mean, they only do like 11-minute episodes for Gumball, so it's not like the movie was like just working on it all over again. Now the second most obvious change was the voice actors. If you remember the original series, the VAs would change frequently, but the last person that did the voice for Gumball was Nicholas Cantu from Season 5 to 6. You remember that guy, right? He was online a lot back around 2020 for reasons that were good and controversial, I guess. He's currently in his 20s now, which makes him unfit to voice Gumball, so he was replaced by Alkaio. I need to look up what.
Roll call. We're going to say name, character, and or job. So, let's go.
I'm Alkaio. I play Gumball.
Alkaio. Okay. How do you pronounce that last name? How do you pronounce her full name? Oh god.
Alkaio and Taylor.
What the fuck? Why do you do the freaking Clash Royale King Law female? So for the new series, Gumball's being voiced by Alkaio, who is a younger teen actor that's been with Disney for most of his early career. In terms of the voice acting in the show, I don't know why, but it just doesn't sound like Gumball to me. Like, I know he sounds like different in like almost every single season, but like this is like different. I'm not sure how to feel about it.
I'm too young to eat like a washed-up actor pretending to live off a liquid paleo diet for their food blog.
What that mean, nigga?
But after the 10th episode, I don't really care anymore. It's just whatever. Moving over to Darwin, who I don't really know if the IMDb page is mixing things up or that there's apparently 2 people that voiced Darwin, but there was Doniel T. Hansley Jr., who voiced Darwin for most of Season 5 and some of Season 6, while Christian J. Simon voices Darwin for only 2 episodes of season 5 and most of season 6. For the new series, he's now voiced by Hero Hunter, which is probably like the coolest name for a kid to have. I don't really mind him too much. He matches to the cute charmer Darwin anyways, so I kind of got used to his voice pretty quickly. For the whole series of Gumball, the VA for Anais or Anais, I don't really know. It's Anais, right? But anyways, it's all voiced by one girl whose name is Kyla Ray Kowalski. You can notice a voice change as the show progresses. This is mainly because the series started when she was only 10 years old, and when it ended, she was basically an adult. So when the new series started in 2023, when she was now in her 20s, she was obviously replaced with the new voice actor, Kinza Khan. If you're a fan of Gumball, then this is going to be another obvious change that you're just going to have to get used to. I know it took me a while to adjust, but luckily for the mom and dad, they're basically the same. This is a bit of a side note, but the family for Gumball was entirely based off of Ben Bocquelet's family, which he shared in an interview talking about the new show.
I think I relate the most to Gumball, probably.
Okay.
You know, this is like the characters are based off my own family. You know, my dad is
Oh.
called Richard and my mom's Nicole. My sister Anais is a very clever person, a computer programmer, you know.
For the other characters' voices, well, after doing a bit of research, I can tell you confidently that every character still has their respective voice actor with them. They do sound a little off though, but that was probably just because of, you know, time, and also the fact that there was an audio issue with the show, but I'm not getting into that right now. We'll get to that later. There's actually another important guy from Gumball that wasn't in this new show, like someone so important that he actually plays an effect on another factor that makes this one different from the original. I'm talking about McGraves and of course the writing. Now if you don't know McGraves, he was a worker in the Amazing World of Gumball who wrote a couple of episodes and was the series director for 190 of them from 2011 to 2019. Which, by the way, Gumball only has like 240 episodes. He was a series director for about 80% of all Gumball episodes. But unfortunately for the new series, he's not here. Damn, that's all the writers, really. It's not known why McGraves isn't here anymore. There was never a public statement about him, so I can only assume that after Gumball, he went on to do his own thing, since in 2021, he actually did and went to direct and write some episodes for Elliot from Earth, which is great. Before his show kind of got cancelled, and right now I'm not really sure what he's doing. You can see on IMDb he has whatever this is. I looked it up. I still have no idea what this is. Kind of sucks that McGraves wasn't here in the new series since he would be frequently referenced subtly, but I doubt they would include him now since he's, you know, not actually there. The main 3 producers for Gumball though would be Ben Bocquelet, Eric Fountain, and Matt Lazel. Eric Fountain, by the way, was a storyboard supervisor for Adventure Time and Craig of the Creek, as well as being a storyboard artist for a couple of Gravity Falls episodes. He said that his main goal for working on the show was to keep it the same as the original series.
I made it kind of my mission statement to not make it different.
Never actually worked on Gumball though, but being in the same sphere as Adventure Time and other series, I'm sure you would have picked up on it pretty easily. The 3rd executive producer was Matt, which you already know about, but he plays a more important role here as Ben decides to take a step back in the work for Gumball, encouraging them to just make it weird because, well, yeah. You can see this in the writers section where Ben Bocquelet only wrote about 11 episodes, whilst Matt worked on 18. Wait, who are these people again? If we exclude Ben and Matt from this list, we can see the new writers for the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. And I'm sure most people are asking this, but did any of them previously work on the Amazing World of Gumball? Yeah, there's 2 actually. After looking through their profiles and stuff, I can tell you right now that the only 2 people that worked on the original series was Joe Parham and Joe Markham, which they don't sound related, but it sounds so similar that I think they are. They actually wrote a decent amount of episodes, but unfortunately for the new series, they only do like 7 and 8 episodes shown here, whilst Brian Caselli, Michelle, Todd, and Jessica wrote the rest. Luke Allen also directed each episode, who again didn't work on the previous Gumball, just many other kids shows. There's also the composers, art directors, sound, and effects, but I don't really think Gumball would have had a drastic change if these people were new, so I'm not gonna pay attention to them. Although, fun fact for the composers, we have Zach Clark, who worked on most of the songs for the new Gumball, except for one whose credit is given to Kawaii Sprite, who, if you were online back in like 2020, 2021, was the guy that made the music for an indie game called Friday Night Funkin'. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is true or not because I couldn't find anything for this and his name wasn't in the episode credits, but apparently the song he composed was called, funnily enough, Funked. But anyways, I'm stating all the new people working on the show to sort of answer some people's complaints with this season of Gumball just not feeling the same, and I think that's about it for the Gumball season. Now the only thing left to do now is just, well, talk about the show. Now, I'm not going to talk about every single episode because this video is already starting to drag and I'm getting tired of editing. For anyone that wants a deep analysis on the new Gumball series, then I definitely recommend this video by Manager Jojo saying that the new Gumball series is weird. He is pretty critical of the show though, so take it with a grain of salt. The first episode is the burger, which is a very interesting episode to start off with. I'm not really sure what else to say about it except for the fact that you can tell pretty well, especially with headphones, that there's an audio issue. Apparently this was due to Hulu slowing the show down and pitch correcting it, as stated by a Reddit user who thinks that since it's being displayed at the US at a different frame rate, they had to slow it down a bit to adjust to this. For most shows, yeah, it would have sucked, but I feel like it might have gone unnoticed if it wasn't for the fact that Gumball is notoriously known by its creators to be really fast-paced.
Often it means delivering it very loud and very fast. All our actors have become experts at speaking very quickly because we fit so much into an episode of Gumball.
But anyways, it continues where the teaser trailer left off, with the plot being Gumball and Darwin trying to eat something healthy as they avoid processed food. Now, something I find kind of confusing already was that at the start, Darwin makes it pretty clear that Joyful Burger is bad, since I mean, it's right there, so they're not going to eat it. But then after that, they go home because, wait, they just go home. There's not even like a bell or like a class dismissed or anything. Gumball sneaks to the fridge for some reason to eat a snack, which Darwin doesn't seem to be a huge fan of, which is weird because it seems to really, you know, punch it down to us that it's supposed to be about Joyful Burger specifically, but whatever, sure. Also, when Darwin does this kick, Richard just has the same face for like almost 5 seconds. Why is this guy so happy like the world's all sunshine and rainbows? Man, ain't shit to smile about. Also, after watching the series, it seems like Gumball's wittiness in the show doesn't really hit the same. We don't need to play the scene again. I already made that joke. Why is there 2 driving school signs just right next to each other? Anyways, the whole plot of the episode with eating the rich is kind of nice, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really feel subtle. I thought the ending was kind of just like rushed, I guess, but I don't know. I just thought there'd be more because when it just ends like that, I'm just like, is that it? Seriously? Also, the owner of Joyful Burger is a burger, even though it's supposed to be like that Chanak's evil goblin looking guy, unless the burger is like the Black Rock Velma or some shit. Episode 2 is fine, I guess, although Manager Jojo from that one Gumball video I showed before makes a good point with this scene.
One of them being an alpha male. She then says,
"Yeah, I think I used to date that guy in high school."
Now I take issue with this particular joke, given the fact the only person Nicole has dated since childhood is Richard. They literally had to ignore a key part of Nicole's character for her to say this joke.
This, among many other examples, is why, in my opinion, that if you haven't watched the original series of Gumball, you can still watch this one and basically miss nothing. This is due to most of the nuance in the main cast not really being carried over, but I'll get to that section later. The third episode was just uncomfortable to watch. I don't know why they did this scene, as well as basically have phone sex in another one, which, yeah, you'll call me weird for calling it that, but what else does this look like?
Dude, that was great! Just like you were here.
Oh, hell no!
It's not the worst, but it's just mediocre, I guess. It's not funny, it's just weird. Wait a minute. The next episode though, The Thing, classic. It's a Richard episode, so hearing him talk after all these years was nice, as well as Granny JoJo, even though we see her true form. The next episode after that though is The Butts, which is an episode a lot of people really hate, and don't get me wrong, I do too. But the people that are complaining that the new show sucks and pointing to this episode specifically as the reason why is just stupid. I mean, in the original show we had bad episodes like The Slap, The Girlfriend, The Kiss, as well as a few others. It's not like the creator wouldn't want this from the show, since Ben even states in the interview that this was his favorite episode.
I don't know, they're all my children. I can't like choose a favorite. Well, I would say like one of the first ones that's about to come out, The Butts.
So yeah, the episode isn't good compared to everything else in Gumball, but don't act like the original show had a few misses either. The next episode is a Traffic, which is fine. It's just kind of hard to get used to since Anais talks a lot, but it's not the one that we're used to. It's a new one. It really throws me off in this episode, I'm not gonna lie. The next episode is fine, except for the cheerleader, which this might be a me thing, but their singing isn't awful. The delivery is fine, but it is not catchy. I ain't feeling the beat on this. The next couple of episodes are okay, except for the letter, which has that scene.
Oh, hell no!
And yeah, I know they're doing this because weird, but Carrie can canonically kiss and touch Darwin. This isn't necessary. Why? Why are they doing this? The last few episodes are pretty good, except for the climb. You can't really tell me that Gumball gets PTSD from mooning people in this previous episodes where he just walks around naked. The Alma Dam was pretty cool to see since we got to see Penny's family, especially her grandma. Did you see her in that episode? Other than that though, that's kind of it for now until the next half of the season comes out, and now I think I can finally give out my closing thoughts on this video. The Amazing World of Gumball was a show built as a way for its creator to put whatever crazy idea he had for characters in his own little world. It was a huge success during its time and continues to still hold up today, but with the start of a new series, it was obvious that things would be turning out differently. The big three characters in the show had new and younger voice actors, writers that previously worked on the show had moved on, and so new writers came in to fill in for them. And with streaming taking over, the show would now be on Hulu and HBO Max. The reason for the 6-year gap between the old and new show was due to its creator working on the movie, which would have served as a finale for the series. Unfortunately though, due to Warner Bros. Discovery accumulating tons of debt and having to remove shows and movies, it was dropped but is still being worked on quietly in the background. It'll probably still come out, just not anytime soon. We at least got this new show though, even if people consider it to be season 7 of Gumball. It has its pros and cons, and I think the only main issue with this new series is the slight continuity issues with its characters. Also, the show is weird, and yeah, I know it's in the name, but I also find it a little lazy to brush off its issues by just saying, oh, it's weird, that's what they're going for. Because the original Gumball series was weird too, but they did it in a way that came off more as unique. Okay, if I had to explain this, I'll just use like 2 different weird shows and explain to you what I mean by good weird and bad weird. Regular Show is a weird show. In fact, its name is supposed to be ironic because nothing in the show is regular, but they do it in a good way that's still entertaining. Now, Sanjay and Craig is considered a weird show, but people do not look back at that one fondly. See, that one's just weird for the sake of being different, and I guess that's my main criticism of this new Gumball series. Don't do it weird for the sake of being weird. The old show was weird too, but managed to pull off some unique and amazing episodes of Gumball's new world. But I feel like the writers are leaning too into this weird side and forgetting some key aspects of some characters. That, and they're also new, so this whole world of Elmore is, and will probably always be, a tough town to understand and work with. I personally still find it pretty funny though, so I'd rate the show, or the first half of this season, like a 7, maybe 7.2. But I think that's basically all I have right now. This video could have been way longer, but I want to upload something because I haven't for 3 months, and I'm not going to lie to you and say I'll be uploading more frequently. My final exams for school is like 2 or 3 weeks, so don't expect anything until like another 2 months. Alright, that's the end of the video though. I can't think of anything funny to say at the end, so just get out. Get out!